All right, let's watch some Triple Triad. This is a Delial versus Tezuka for Weekly Open. Something or other. You can read the description of the video. You know how to read. And we are playing a game. So Deli started in 3 with a corner that he could take back many ways. 3 of his 4 cards had the double capture. Not so important that the 8 facing out is, an 8 facing out. Tezuka could take it, but it limits it to just 1 capture. There's sort of a thing of like, if you put like a 4 out against an opponent's weak direction, you're like, they can only take this one way. That's kind of annoying for them. I can take it lots of ways. But we tend to think about this less with an 8 facing out, with a maximum number facing out. It's we can take this back, but they can too, so it's covered. But in both cases, the way they can take is limited, right? They only have this one way to be able to take it, and that is going to be some hindrance to how they handle their hand. I think it's always an interesting question when you see a corner that you can handle both ways, and you can handle both ways comfortably. You know you're not walking into some huge combo synergy. Like you can take in 2 with 6 6 7 4, 8 5 8 1. You're not going to walk into stuff. You can take in 6 with 8 6 7 4. At least you're probably not. We'll take a look in a sec. Um, where do you go? Because you don't actually need to set up against it. One thing you can do is set up against it anyway. Now, some hands don't have a natural way to do so. And it looks like Tezuka's hand, sorry, Tezuka. Have I been saying turds? I don't know. Tezuka's hand really wants to go up down. So actually, one thing I would be drawn towards from Tezuka's perspective is going an 8. Probably not so appealing here because Deli has so much safety in 7 and 9, and you don't have safety in 9. But your hand is happy to be in an up-down battle, I think. Maybe you get swept by 6 4 6 8, but that's only one side of the board. I think there was a real case for going 8 here because the hand is so polarized. Like specifically, maybe 1 4 8 8 and 8, just a card that's going to be kind of crappy. Yeah, it gives up. Oh no, you have nothing to the left. Ugh, hard to get away with that. No, you still can't because you kept 7 4 7 6 in your hand. So if Deli goes like A5 1 3 and 7, you can play 7 4 7 6 and 9. But then actually you don't force an up down game so much. Maybe they go 5. You do get safety in 6. You're probably doing okay there. It is a little complicated. I actually like 8 here though. I really dislike far sides in general, except when they are defining the game into a specific, not directionality, but sort of axis of either the X or Y axis, up, down, or left, right. And here, this hand strikes me as like 7 4 7 6. I want to go up, down. 8 6 7 4. I want to go up, down. 8 5 8 1. I want to go up, down. 6 6 7 4. I want to go up, down. 1 4 8. 8. I guess I'll get that out of my hand. 7 is a more normal place to play, and probably a good one here, because it does create some difficulties for Deli's hand. His only captures an 8 or 8 6 5 6, which you have coverage of with 1 4 8 8, and 6 4 6 8, which you may be able to create some play against. You have some ability to work off that. You have a nice plus wall recapture. In fact, you have 2 of them and 4. Deli does not have a capture in 4, so you successfully put a number facing up that's annoying for him to deal with, and you make the threat of blocking it in. This seems very logical. Deli goes 1. Okay. Deli creates a way to handle 4. Deli identified 4 is harder for me than 8, so I need to give myself play in 4. He's also doing something I think quite clever, which is saying the game should be going up. I need the game to be going up. I cannot be placing more cards that allow the game to be directed downwards. And also, this is a hard card for Tezuka to take if he doesn't go in 4 immediately. But maybe Tezuka can overwork some cards in Deli's hand. Let's say Tezuka played, and I'm not sure this is the right card, there's 2 choices, but let's say Tezuka played 8 5 8 1 and 4. Because 8 6 7 4 maybe will have use in 6, maybe somewhere. So 8 5 8 1 and 4. Saying, Well, if you go in 2, then your only card for 8, I have coverage of. And if you go in 8, if you go with 8-6-5-6, I combo you, and if you go with 6-4-6-8, you no longer have 2. What I'm trying to do is say that Deli's 6-4-6-8 is too critical for too many squares. And so I think as Tezuka, you're trying to make a case that that card is doing too much, that it's overworked. I'm going to force it out of your hand, and the rest of your hand isn't very good. With the critical line in my head, I'm not sure this is right, going something like 8-5-8-1 and 4, 6-4-6-8 and 2, and then you can't play 8-6-7-4, 8-6-7-4 and 5 because, well, you can combo back if they go 8, they have the same and 6. That's kind of annoying. That's maybe very annoying. So maybe my idea is just bad. Okay, but maybe you start with 8-6-7-4 and 4, and if Deli goes 6-4-6-8 and 2, you now play 8-5-8-1. You have a bunch of combo play in various squares, and Dragon Lance is pretty dead. Yeah, I think that's the way I like. Tezuka goes for the much more combative approach. He says, I'm setting up all the squares. 8-6-7-4 has sames in 6 and 8. 8-6-7-4 also could land pretty well in 4. 8-5-8-1 now has this crazy plus in 2. It also has pluses in 4, or a plus in 4. 6-6-7-4 is kind of a dead card, but I'm on second turn, so what do I care? On the other hand, if Deli has these squares too, it can get dangerous. But Deli has 2 difficult cards to get rid of. So my initial thought is same wall on? Same wall is not on. But my next thought, so there's no same wall in 2. But my next thought is, how does Deli use both of 8-5-1-3 and 8-6-5-6? Because 6-4-6-8 is gonna land hard. That's that's for sure. But Dragon Lance is almost dead. So you'd love to find a way to use Dragon Lance, and it might not be there. And 8-6-5-6, this might have been a much better reaction than what I was looking at. I really like this move. It is very much not my instinct. It's not really a square I check. I also don't care that much about combo synergy on second turn in these X's, or in positions likely to be an X. The combo chains are just likely to not matter in the X on second turn. I talked about this with a closed game recently. If you check my closed game coverage, how setting up combos for second turn in the X just doesn't play out very well. I think it was a TTAC game between Vid and Frodo where I think it came up and was really interesting. So, but here, Deli has dead cards. Deli has 2 cards that just don't have play. So Deli needs to be checking squares other than 9. 2 and 4 are more likely to work than 6 or 8. But I think checking, for instance, Dragonlance in 8 is very much worth checking. Or 8-6-5-6 and 8 actually might be the better move. Yeah, I think 8-6-5-6 and 8 does it. My point is, if they go 4, I can now play Dragonlance safely in 9. You might even have better than this. But if you play 8 and then 9, you have found a use for both cards while leaving open 2, 4, and 6, where 6, 4, 6, 8 will take sufficient cards to get you the tie. By playing 8 and 9, you grab 2 safe cards, and then 6, 4, 6, 8 is a third, and it will capture at least 2 things, and depending how it goes, possibly a third. Now, Deli's going to be looking for wins. I'm just saying, I found a definite tie. I'm very confident it ties, and it finds a way to use the cards I was having trouble using. So I would be happy with that because it would be really hard for me to believe here that I'm winning with 2 cards I'm so unhappy to have in my hand. So I'm just trying to find a sequence where I can get those Dragonlance and I think Seraphita out of my hand and keep 6-4-6-8 for the final turn. And due to Tezuka's left weakness, that is a way to do so. That's where I would settle. And we see Deli do the same thing. Yeah. I think this is a type of thinking Deli is more attuned to than I am, which is he really does not like having dead cards, and he finds ways to get rid of them such that they have some play. So I think it's interesting we ended up on the same idea. It might mean it was the only possible idea. I bet there were a few ways to hold this and a whole lot to lose it. But this is one I'm very pleased we ended up on the same move here. I think it's a very logical move within the constraints of the hand and guarantees you're not going to lose this game. I like this move quite a lot. I guess there is a technical way this loses, which is if like Tezuka can block 9 with 6, 6, 7, 4, such that Deli cannot play 4 or 6 with Dragonlance without flipping 5, and he gets comboed back. That would be a pretty hilarious way to lose, actually. I doubt it does lose, but that's a pretty funny idea. The greatest lines in all of Triple Triad are when someone is forced to take and they don't want to. And it's not when they're forced to take, but they've been like setting up combos the whole way, so they knew they'd take. It's when it really looks like they should have things that don't take, like Dragonlance and 6 should not be flipping 5, but you actually don't give them away not to. Um, so that's just a funny idea. I don't think it actually matters here. But yeah, I really like this way of playing this from Deli, and I really liked Tezuka's move in 5. I think both are really good. And I was sort of from Tezuka's view thinking, how can I make Deli's hand play really badly? And I was trying to find ways in 4, but Tezuka found a better way. And then Deli, I think, found a really nice way to say, yeah, these 2 cards are dead, but I can still find use for them. I can still find something for them to do, and they're maybe not quite as dead as they look. Incidentally, what card is this 8647? 8674. What's its name? Cheetah. Ah, that makes sense. Okay. Um, I thought that looked like him, but I wasn't entirely sure. And I thought maybe it was something from the Persona 5 Royal or whatever it's called, which I haven't played. Yeah, I like this game. It makes me wonder if Deli had something better than 1, because you wonder if you could have gotten rid of Dragonlance or 8656 earlier. But I'm skeptical that it was any better. In general, I think opposite corners, theirs is about as hard to take as mine is. We're gonna have a pretty balanced game. Uh, it's not clear that I'll be able to find advantage or that there is advantage to find. And if there is, it might be very difficult to find. So I think this was a good game of Triple Triad. I'm gonna pop open the solver on the side just to get a quick look at how narrow a path there was for these players. Was this something where they found nice moves, and there were lots of moves available, and they found good moves within that, but there were lots of ways, or were these more was this a more narrow path? My guess is the path wasn't that narrow, but it was trickier than the solver thinks. Which is to say, when the solver says there were a bunch of ties here, I'm gonna say I think the path to those ties is none. I think this game was more unbalanced and more up in. My prediction is the solver will say this was a pretty tie-heavy game, relatively speaking, and I will say the solver is wrong, and this was a pretty dangerous game that either player could have let get out of control, and both players played really well, such that it didn't. Which is, not to be not unexpected between these two. I will say, I think Tezuka hasn't been playing that much recently, and I've not thought he was playing up to his usual standards recently, which happens to all of us. Deli is playing very well. I'm going to have it skim some moves. It's going to take a while to run that, but after 7, 8, 7, 2, and 1, it thought 17 losses, 7 ties for Tezuka, which is pretty normal around move 4. I wanted him to go 8, 6, 7, 4, and 4, which is a tie. He went 1, 4, 8, 8, and 5, which is also a tie. His move gave Deli fewer ties in response. Deli had 4 ties after that move, and 3 of them were in 8, which is to say every card in 8 tied and most other moves didn't. Which is to say Deli found the right idea. There was a move not like this that held, but not many. And now here, I'm expecting Dragonlance in 9, but 6-4, 6-8, and 2 should tie as well, right? Flips 2 cards, makes it 6-4. They flip back 2, doesn't combo anything extra, and you're going to flip 1 with Dragonlance. So multiple ties here. Yeah, but Deli plays the one that I would play too. And I think this was important, right? This was the one he saw at distance because he didn't find this by calculating out, by specifically counting 6-4, 6-8, and 2 here, and it works. He did it by saying, I can create this wall, and I know 6-4, 6-8 takes enough at the end. He did this by feel and understanding. And of course, he calculated as well, but not by this specific calculation, by a more general, well understood calculation, and the same one I did. Yeah, I really like how they played this. Is the solver done with anything else? On move 3, half of Deli's moves tie and half lost. That's a pretty normal rate. Yeah, the solver thinks this was a normal game, with some danger, but not huge danger. It thinks Deli's starter was a slight advantage to Tezuka, but that doesn't mean that there was a better starter available. Just that you know, Tezuka was doing fine after the starter. Pretty balanced game after. It probably gives a slight edge to Tezuka, and that's fair. The move in 5 was really good, but I really like how Deli responded, and I'm really pleased he played the tie in 9, not the tie in 2, because the tie in 9 is the one that says, I knew I had to get rid of these cards, and the tie in 2 says, I figured out a way to count out a tie. And I like the move that says I understood this, not the move that says I counted. Uh, and of course, a lot of my success in Triple Triad is because I am good at counting, but it's more fun to see the moves that say I understand than the moves that say I counted. All right, if they play again, I'll try to catch it, but in another video.